The history of heaven, I think, was a good way to try to summarize the substance of what the Wimberley lectures were after and bring the history of heaven to bear on the period before the law, especially associated with Adam before the fall in the covenant of works, and then the history of heaven after the law with the death, resurrection, and ascension of the second and last Adam, Jesus Christ. And so, what I was trying to do was get underneath the question of the spiritual character of the law as an administration of the covenant of grace in the Old Testament and set the priority for the history of heaven as a frame of reference for understanding covenant theology in general and the law's relationship to the covenant of works, covenant of grace in particular. And so I think the most basic or remedial insight that I was after in that first lecture, and I'm not going to preview the whole thing. I'll just give
And we
a
should
brief
just let
overview.
everyone know, of course, that the lectures are all available online. So they're now not only up on our website and linked to there, but you can download them from Vimeo, or you can head on over to YouTube or Facebook. But on YouTube, I've created an entire playlist so people
Oh,
can
wow.
watch all the
Very
lectures. So
good.
they're all up on there, and I should put links to them in the episode description for this episode too. So,
Yes.
and there are handouts available on those posts as well if you'd like to follow along.
Yes, I tried to give fairly extensive handouts that in a manner parallel to last year's conference.
Mm-hmm.
I think the basic insight is this, and this is a preview for people who are going to listen to the Wimberley lectures and may not know where it's going. This is kind of a preview and overview of what's happening in those lectures as it's amplified in this most recent conference. The thesis in the first lecture is very basic, that in the beginning in Genesis 1:1, the reference to the heaven that God created, uh, that is a reference to an archetypal temple dwelling of God. Before God creates an earthly temple in Eden or an earthly tabernacle or an earthly temple, first or second, he pitches, made not with human hands, a heavenly tabernacle, a heavenly temple dwelling realm that he fills with the glory of his spirit and populates with angels. The 6 days of creation, the Spirit hovers over and forms on days 1 through 3, creature kingdoms, days 4 through 6, creature kings. Um, and on day 7, the Creator King, as it were, ascends to sit in heavenly places and be enthroned as the Omega Consummator, as the Lord of the Sabbath. And so prior to the covenant of works, prior to a history on earth per se, there is a bona fide history of heaven, understood as this. First, the formation of a temple dwelling populated with angels, followed by the creation week. And then the consummation of that creation week is the Creator entering into that heavenly temple dwelling, that royal resting place, and being seated among the angels to receive worship and adoration. And the question from the standpoint of earth history is this: will Adam, in his obedience under the covenant of works as the image of God, will he obey in such a way that he, though for a while lower than the angels, obeys and through that obedience eats from the tree of life, is confirmed in righteousness, holiness, and knowledge, and ascends into the heaven temple, exalted above the angels, where he will dwell permanently with his posterity in the worship and adoration of the triune God? Will he pass, in other words, from testing in the probation temple in Eden on earth to Sabbath rest in the heavenly places to behold the glory of the Sabbath resting Lord? And so the history of heaven prior to the law, the history of heaven prior to the giving of the covenant of works, and as the context for the covenant of works, it becomes an all-controlling focus or locus for understanding how the history on earth in the covenant of works is subservient to and looks to the completion of the history of heaven, understood as Adam passing from probation testing in the Eden temple to Sabbath resting in the heaven temple. And if that basic insight becomes clear to us, then everything from Genesis 3 following is going to be situated around this question: how and when will the history of heaven that Adam did not complete in his obedience, when and where and by whom will it be completed? Well, the answer: by the second Adam, the man of heaven, the life-giving spirit, Jesus Christ.